It's Saturday the 1st of July, I'm Jamie East, and this was a week that saw the fallout from a 24-hour Russian rebellion, Tory Rwanda plans fail at the Court of Appeal, Thames Water in trouble, and new developments in the Stephen Lawrence case.
Grab a cup of something hot, put up your feet, and get up to speed on the 7 biggest stories of the week. This is the Standout 7 from the Smart 7.
It's news,
But not the news.
This week saw the fallout from the Wagner Group's 24-hour coup attempt in Russia ripple across the globe. The rebellion by the mercenaries was seen as a direct challenge to Russian President Vladimir Putin and appears to have revealed cracks in his leadership. Wagner Group chief Yevgeny Prigozhin had demanded the removal of Moscow's defense minister Sergei Shoigu. However, Shoigu was seen in a Kremlin video release on Monday in Ukraine, while Prigozhin has been keeping a low profile. And an angry President Putin addressed the Russian nation on Monday night.
The organisers of this rebellion cannot but understand that they will be brought to justice.
UN Foreign Secretary James Cleverly told the House of Commons that the Wagner Group had damaged Russia's case for war in Ukraine, while US President Biden said the mini-coup was nothing to do with the US. And EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell blames Putin for creating a monster.
The monster that Putin created with the Wagners, the monster is biting him now. The political system is showing the fragilities, and the military power is cracking.
Putin continued on Tuesday with a minute's silence held for those who died and praised the whole of Russia for their efforts in stopping the curtailed coup.
Our resolution and courage has been huge and has played a defining role in overcoming these obstacles and the mutiny. You can see that the army, society and people were one.
By this time, Prigozhin had arrived by private jet into neighbouring Belarus, and Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko was keen to tell of his part in diffusing the situation. He described negotiating a settlement between Putin and Prigozhin, speaking first to a furious Putin, convincing him he could negotiate with the Wagner boss, and then making what sounds like a phone call for the ages.
We talked for around 30 minutes exclusively in swear words. I analysed it later. There were around 10 times more swear words than normal vocabulary.
Thursday saw news that Wagner mercenary group will no longer fight in Ukraine after refusing to sign Kremlin contracts. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin made a rare and bizarre public appearance in the streets of the Russian Republic of Dagestan as he looked to shore up his image as leader. And as European leaders met in Brussels in advance of July's NATO summit, President of the European Parliament Roberto Metsola says that whatever's going on in Russia, the EU will continue to back the Ukraine.
What we can be certain about is that Ukraine must remain our number one priority. Our policies are working. Putin is weaker and Ukraine is efficiently fighting back.
Way back in April 2022, Boris's government announced a grand plan to send asylum seekers on a one-way trip to Rwanda so they could apply for asylum there. It seemed like a crazy scheme, and sure enough, the first flight, which was due to take place last June, never took off after a multitude of legal challenges. Thursday saw the appeals court weigh in on the matter as the 3-judge panel ruled that the long-distance scheme was in fact not permitted. Lord Chief Justice Lord Burnett made the announcement.
The result is that the High Court's decision that Rwanda was a safe third country is reversed, and that unless and until the deficiencies in its asylum processes are corrected, removal of asylum seekers to Rwanda will be unlawful.
It caps off a bad week for Home Secretary Suella Braverman, who found out on Tuesday that the cost per asylum seeker for the Rwanda scheme was going to be £169,000. That's according to an impact assessment and would be on top of the £140 million already paid to Rwanda. But Suella's vowed to carry on with her struggle to stop the small boats.
Whilst, of course, we are disappointed with the decision today, we will be putting in an application to seek permission to appeal very, very swiftly.
Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer says he has a plan that involves actually processing asylum claims.
The government's got no plan. It's got a gimmick, which is the Rwanda scheme, a gimmick which has already cost the taxpayer £140 million. And now we know from the court judgment this morning that the government didn't even do the basics to make sure that it was fit for purpose.
The COVID inquiry came face-to-face with Matt Hancock on Tuesday as the former Health Secretary was quizzed over his role in the pandemic. Hancock was questioned at length by KC Hugo Keith about the systems and planning in place for pandemic events, and it was truly shocking to hear the revelations, including the fact that the government really had no idea about care homes when it decided to move NHS patients into them.
There was work ongoing to try to find out even the basics, how many care homes are operating right now in the UK. That was a fact that we did not know.
He apologised to the families, saying he was profoundly sorry for each death. He was also asked about a 2016 exercise, Operation Cygnus, which revealed shortcomings in the pandemic planning system, but only 8 of the 22 recommendations were acted on. That in part was because Brexit planning superseded it, but Matt says that saved the NHS from running out of critical ICU medication.
The work done for a no-deal Brexit on supply chains for medicines was the difference between running out of medicines in the peak of the pandemic and not running out. We came extremely close, within hours of running out of medicines for intensive care.
Hugo Keith KC was relentless in his questioning, suggesting that the NHS staff were lions led by structural donkeys and pointing the finger squarely at Hancock.
But Mr. Hancock, it's not just a question of irony, is it? These failings materially hampered the United Kingdom's ability to prevent death.
Former US President Donald Trump was indicted for the second time earlier this month, this time for allegedly mishandling classified government documents by storing them in his Mar-a-Lago property and refusing to hand them back. But Trump seems convinced he's done nothing wrong. Last week he said he'd simply been too busy to hand over the documents and wanted to remove his personal items from the boxes they were stored in first. Speaking at the Faith and Freedom Coalition conference last weekend, he once again claimed he was within his rights to keep them.
Whatever documents the president decides to take with him, he has the absolute right to take them. He has the absolute right to keep them, or he can give them back to NARA if he wants. He talks to them like we were doing. That's the law, and it couldn't be more clear.
But on Monday, CNN released leaked tapes of him talking about the classified material. The audio, part of the special counsel's evidence, is from an interview with the authors of a Mark Meadows biography and sees Trump displaying a plan to attack Iran prepared by General Mark Milley.
Isn't it amazing? I have a big pile of papers. This thing just came up. Look. This was him. They presented me this. This is off the record, but they presented me this.
Trump's argued that he didn't have the document, that he was just speaking about it. But it's clear from the recording he knows it's classified and that he shouldn't have it. The only question now is, where did the leak come from?
Except it is like highly confidential, secret. This is secret information. But look at this. You attack. And
Hillary would print that out all the time, you know.
She'd send it to Anthony Weiner. The pervert.
Still to come on the Standout 7, Thames Water's in trouble and the Witcher returns. Right after this.
Welcome back.
England's largest water supply could be on the verge of collapse, and Wednesday saw government ministers and regulator Ofwat racing to draft contingency plans. Asked to make a statement in the Commons about the situation with Thames Water, Environment Minister Rebecca Powell started things off by confirming she does in fact know what water is.
Water is what makes life possible on our planet, and it is essential for our health and well-being.
Reassuring, Thames Water's racked up a whopping £14 billion in debt, and it's not the only company in trouble. Last week, Southern Water proposed charging customers almost £300 extra a year by 2030 to help cover investments. Green MP Caroline Lucas says privatisation is to blame.
Doesn't that just show that privatisation of water was a serious mistake and it needs to be permanently rectified?
Back to Rebecca, who presumably hasn't learned about sewage spills yet because she says we have far better quality water since privatisation.
We do have virtually the best quality water coming out of our taps almost anywhere in the world, but we also have these phenomenal results for our bathing water areas, 93% being classed as good or excellent.
The family of Stephen Lawrence have condemned the Met Police's failed investigation into his murder, which took place 30 years ago. The latest twist in the story saw the BBC reveal a sixth suspect, Matthew White, who died in 2021. The fact that multiple witnesses suggested he was involved fell on deaf ears, and then Met Commissioner Cressida Dick declared the investigation inactive in 2020. Former Met Police Superintendent Leroy Logan told GMB that the whole affair raises serious questions over the Met's leadership.
It's not for the first time investigative journalists have revealed where the Met are falling short of the mark. And it really shows that there's some real issues around the culture and the leadership.
The Witcher's returning to our screens this week, but it's not going to be easy for fans given that it's Henry Cavill's final season as Geralt of Rivia. Netflix is about to drop the third season, which may feel like the last for die-hard fans who'll be mourning Cavill. Not to worry though, he's being replaced by Liam Hemsworth for the already renewed seasons 4 and 5 of the show, which should complete the main source material of the books. The Witcher Season 3 Part 1 drops June the 29th, but you can catch the trailer right now.
For the first time, I understand real fear. The dangers we've seen foretell an even more menacing future.
You've been listening to The Smart 7. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Hit that follow button and have a great day. Give us 7 minutes and we'll give you the world.